Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Scary Fact Fiction. Today is part 2 of My First Night Alone in My New House Didn't Go Very Well, our No Sleep story from Reddit. The original poster, the Little Red Fox 326, posted this story about 6 years ago. Grab yourself a cup of your favorite beverage, relax, and let's get started. There's quite a bit in this update, so bear with me. Just so there's no confusion, everything from the original post happened Monday night. Yesterday, Tuesday, was pretty quiet, but today got weird again. Suffice it to say, tonight didn't go so well either. I showed Steve my wilted flowers when he woke up Tuesday morning, and he had no explanation for it. Especially since the roses on the opposite side of the house are untouched and healthy. The closest explanation either of us can come up with was some sort of parasite or fungus got to them. He spent some time inspecting the woods around the house and found nothing suspicious or out of place. I didn't sleep great last night, but otherwise all was well. This morning, though, I woke up way too early. It was around 5, and it was still pretty dark outside. I could hear the footsteps out in the woods again. It sounded like it was just barely far out enough that I couldn't see it. Big Ben kept growling at the door. I phoned Steve at around 9, and he came over to check things out once more. By the time he arrived, the sounds were gone. He tried to convince me it was deer, and that the sound of his truck pulling in drove them back into the woods. I want to believe him. Steve hung around for a while, but had to leave for work in the early afternoon. He works at an animals clinic in the city. He promised to stop by and check in on me on his way home. So aside from the dogs, I was left alone again. After he left, I called and talked to Will for a while. I think he knew something wasn't quite right, but he didn't press the issue. Oh, and he had some irritating news. His team is having to extend their trip for an extra day or maybe 2, so I'll be here alone even longer. I tried getting some work done after the phone call, but found it was hard to concentrate, and I was pretty tired. I decided to take a short nap in hopes that I would feel better when I woke up. I slept just under an hour and was woken up by the heat. I hadn't left any windows opened, and it was hot enough outside, 90 degrees according to AccuWeather, that I should have turned on the AC. So now, on top of being stressed and worried, I felt hot, cranky, and still tired. I went ahead and booted up the air, even though open windows would have done the job. I'm not too keen on having any windows open at the moment. While the place cooled down, I took a shower. And then the weirdness began again. Yay! After I took my shower, I dried off and headed to the bedroom to get dressed, which is when I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I froze. At first I was confused, but then I was scared. It wasn't one of the dogs. It couldn't have been. The movement occurred at roughly eye level, and not even Big Ben is that big, for God's sake. It was a subtle movement, almost like a shadow or a shifting light. It had happened in less than 5 seconds. I stared at the spot I thought I had seen it happen, just outside the big window in the living room. Nothing else moved, and I strained to think of what it could have been. The curtains were tied back securely, and even if the window had been opened, it wouldn't have been flapping in the breeze causing the motion. Whatever had moved was outside. It was like I had caught sight of the tail end of something passing by the window. Of course, I was too scared to go look. And then Ben growled again. The noise made me jump into action. I darted back into the bedroom where my revolver was. Ben was up and looking to me with this almost human expression, alarmed, alert, and aware all in one. He turned his attention back to the window. He let out a woof under his breath, and then he lay down in the bedroom doorway. It had upset Danny and Nina, too. They were restless. I looked at the empty room where Ben stared and was wondering if I'd imagined it, when a rushing noise, almost like a heavy gust of wind, emanated through the whole house. So up until now, everything that has happened can technically be explained. But this made my skin prickle. I have never heard anything like that in any house before. It was a rushing sound that couldn't have possibly come from the vents. And I wasn't hearing wind outside either. This sounded like a breath of wind inside. But nothing in the house shifted, and I felt no movement of air. Ben barked loudly at the sound. I stood rooted to the spot, afraid to move what seemed like ages. I was terrified that somehow moving would trigger the sound again. Finally, I crossed the room slowly and silently. I reached into the jewelry box on the dresser and shook it out onto the bed. I found what I was looking for pretty quickly. An antique silver cross necklace that had been my grandmother's. I put it over my head, shaking like a leaf the entire time. I don't know what made me do it, just that it made me feel safer to have it on. I didn't know what else to do at this point. I'm not even overly religious, but in that moment of fear, I wanted my grandmother's cross. Ben leapt onto the bed and stood listening for a moment. Danny and Nina hid in the small walk-in closet like they did when it thundered. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, listening like Ben was. Nothing else happened, but I was too scared to really investigate further. It was only when the light in the room began to change, indicating the sunset had begun, that I left the room. The revolver went with me. I peeked out the window where I'd seen or thought I'd seen movement. The deck was calm and empty. If someone had walked across it when it was that quiet inside, I should have heard it. Maybe I did imagine it, but at this point I couldn't really believe that I had. All the doors and windows were secure. I double and triple checked that. I checked the backyard through the kitchen window to make sure it was empty before letting the dogs out, as uneasy as it made me to open the back door. I'd rather do it before dark. They all did their business and came right back inside, which was unusual since they normally stay outside to goof off for a while. I did something pretty childish when they came back in. I pulled all the window coverings closed and then turned a light on in every single room. The idea of dark corners in the house just now was too freaky for me. I had a few hours to wait for Steve, so I tried to carry on as usual. Got dinner for me and the dogs, started some laundry, and turned on the TV for some background noise in the meantime. My revolver and my phone were never out of reach the entire evening. I watched TV while I waited for Steve, but I was unable to concentrate fully on anything. I was too busy listening, waiting. But all I heard was Steve's car pull into the drive at around 11, which was a huge relief. I let him in, told him about the movement I'd seen and the inexplicable noise that followed. He looked genuinely disturbed as I talked and scolded me for not calling him. I told him a few Redditors here suggested motion sensor lights and cameras, and he agreed that's a good idea. He was about to go home to check on his own animals when something slammed against the south side of the house. When I say slam, I mean hard, like so hard the floor vibrated. And let me tell you, I nearly pissed myself. The dogs went into instant alarm mode, barking and running in the direction of where the noise came from. I immediately grabbed the gun, but my hand was shaking so badly I couldn't have hit the broadside of a barn. I was terrified. It happened a second time. Bam! This time further along the wall. Steve said something along the lines of "what the F," and I was on the verge of crying. I was so scared. Then it happened a third time. Bam! Even further down the wall. It was like someone was walking along the deck and periodically smacking the crap out of the side of my house. Steve took the revolver from me without a word and moved slowly towards the other side of the house. I crumpled onto the floor beside the couch, too afraid to do anything else. Ben was there by my side, a giant, furry shield against whatever was tormenting us. "Don't go outside," I pleaded, but Steve had no intention of leaving the house. He shut off the lights in the bedroom, bathroom, and my tiny home office, all which share the south wall of the house. I could tell he was peering out windows. After a moment, he called to me. "There's nothing there." There was no more slamming against my house. At that point, though, I'd had enough. This latest event felt like the most malicious one. It felt like a challenge or a warning. I knew I wasn't staying in that house tonight. I told Steve I had to get out, and he said that of course the dogs and I could stay with him. I packed my phone, laptop, a change of clothes, and the revolver, grabbed my purse, gathered up the dogs, and we all walked out to the drive together. Steve waited by my Jeep while I loaded the dogs in and saw that I was safely locked in before getting into his truck. I followed him and we noped out of there. So I'm writing this from Steve's kitchen. I'm looking at my house down the road. It looks a lot calmer from here, but I know if I was inside of it, I wouldn't feel very calm. I'm now surrounded by 2 extra dogs. Steve's and his cats are roaming around as well. I'm far from alone. I'm safe. But that house is not. We're going to get some surveillance equipment tomorrow and maybe look into filing a police report about all of this. I might have to break down and tell Will what happened. I haven't decided yet. This is getting very weird very fast. There's too many things about this that are just off. Something isn't right, and I can't strain my mind on it anymore tonight. I already feel a headache coming on. I can see the deck of my house from here. I left the exterior lights on and a few on inside, hoping it would deter anyone or anything from vandalizing the place. Now I wish I hadn't kept those lights on. I swear I just saw a figure pass by the bedroom window. Small update. Danny woke me up howling in her sleep, like she was having a bad dream. I shook her awake and she acted like nothing was wrong. It startled me badly enough that I couldn't get back to sleep yet. Also, I don't think I ever heard Danny howl before. Big Ben cuddled up to her and they're snoozing at the foot of the bed. I'm just trying to wind back down at this point. Small update number 2. Steve and I have discovered some weird things at the house today. I will be detailing it all in a full update later this evening. For now, I am just hanging out at Steve's house and trying not to be too paranoid. So this is part 2 of the R No Sleep Reddit post. My first night alone in my new house didn't go so well. What do you guys think? Please leave your opinions in the comment below. Part 3 will be coming soon. I hope you find my content interesting enough to subscribe to my channel, post comments to share your thoughts, and enable that notification bell. Also, it would mean the world to me if you click that like button. Thank you all, and good night.